The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Are you in the office?
Okay, you guys have to unmute yourself if Grant muted us all. So everybody's muted right now.
Technically, the system did, but
yeah.
Grant, I see that James is on here, but I don't hear him.
I'm here.
Oh, we can hear him.
Okay, all right.
we're going. I think you can start at any time, Aaron.
Yeah, I see that. I was waiting to see if we had some attendees from the public, Grant. We were expecting some.
Yes, there's 6.
Okay, and I see George is with us. And okay, that's who we needed. Okay. Well, good evening, council, and good evening, viewing and listening public. We are going forward with our next virtual meeting of the Yelm City Council, April 28th, 2020, star date, or prairie date, I guess we could say. We'll do the call to order with dispensation of the usual Pledge of Allegiance. We will take the roll call in our normal manner. So I will call, Lori will ask for me to call the roll, and she will record it. So Councilmember Blair.
Here.
Councilmember Carmody. I see your mouth moving. There you go. Still didn't hear Molly.
You're muted, Molly.
Well, let it, for the record, let it be shown that Molly is indicating visually that she is here, and we do see her here. Hi. So Councilmember Carmody is in. Councilmember, where am I? Colt.
I am here.
Councilmember Stillwell. Kat, are you here? Councilmember Stillwell? Also muted. Nod your head up and down if you're here, Councilmember Stillwell. Okay, we have a visual that he's in attendance. Councilmember Wood. Do we see Councilmember Wood present?
He's not on the list.
He's not on the list. Councilmember DePinto.
Here.
And Councilmember Kaminsky. Okay, she recorded visually that she's here. Considering the circumstances, it would be appropriate to entertain a dismissal, an excusal of Councilmember Wood.
I move to excuse.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And let it for the record show that that was a unanimous vote of the council members attending. Thank you. We have the agenda has been sent out to council, and you have it there for your perusal. If there are no changes to the agenda, we could get that approved.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
James?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Very good. So now we have our normal meeting. We would have our special presentations, and we do have 2 this evening that are Student of the Month, and then a proclamation about Bicycle Month, Commuter Month. So on the webinar tonight, we have Mr. George Packard, who is Yelm High School's Student of the Month, as chosen by that committee and celebrated by the Rotary Club, the City of Yelm, and awarded benefits from Walmart, Olympia Federal Savings, Pizzeria La Gitana, Shiplap Shop, Masonry Cafe, Yelm Prairie Lanes, and Windermere real estate agent Scotty Brown. So, George, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, George, as you know, it's tradition for the Student of the Month to sing the fight song for us. So, if any point you want to just go ahead and do that. No, I'm kidding. But I could almost sense your anxiety when I said that just now.
Oh yeah, that just definitely just popped up
You're cool.
big time.
All right. George, I'd like you to hear what the nominating committee put in your Student of the Month packet here. We're so excited to announce George Packard as our Yelm Rotary City of Yelm March 2020 Student of the Month. George is incredibly outgoing and warm by nature, and he has flourished by being immersed in the idea of servant leadership and being connected within his school and the Yelm community. He has grown in his leadership knowledge and abilities in leaps and bounds over the last year, asking very conscientious questions about his community and his school, and pushing himself out of his comfort zone to get to know others, particularly building strong relationships with freshmen that he's mentored. George has pushed his fellow seniors to get to know younger students and reach out to more staff and community for an all-inclusive feel. He applies the same attitude and mindset to football, basketball, and baseball, where he continually sets a good example for underclassmen, both on and off court, as he dresses up for Spirit Days, shows up for the girls' team's games, and encourages others to join him. He stretched himself to understand civil duty as a page for the Washington State House and participated in building a house for a local veteran to come home to. George is a wonderful representative of the Yelm High School student body and our community, and who will continue to make us proud, we're sure. George, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We're all doing a virtual clap and a round of applause.
Good job, George. Thank you.
I know that Rotary is on board as well, and I appreciate what they do for our community. And I just wanted to show you, George, that not only do you get those nice certificates and things, but check this out. Yeah.
That's cool.
There we go. That is a plaque that I hope will remind you of how much we appreciate the work that you put in. And we look forward to you coming back to Yelm and in the not too distant future and joining the Yelm City Council. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. What are you going to do this summer?
Hopefully I have somewhat of a summer baseball to do, but that depends on how everything goes.
Yeah.
And other than that, just work on baseball to for the tryouts for St. Martin's.
Excellent. Well, I know it's going to be an interesting summer, but remember, all the other athletes are in the same position you are, so you're all going to hit the ground at the same level. And we know you'll be great at St. Martin's. So good luck to you, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay, it's also that time of year where usually we have a fellow ride his bike all the way down to Yelm to help read this proclamation, but he's chosen to social distance as the rest of us have. And so it is the Bicycle Commuter Month here in Washington State, and I've been asked to read this proclamation on behalf of the City Council. You don't have to stand, Tad, but that was nice. Nice gesture. Whereas transportation, let's see if I can get this in a better place. Whereas transportation accounts for about a third of the energy use in Washington State and about half of our carbon dioxide emissions, And whereas bicycling is one of the most energy efficient forms of transportation ever invented, and is a mode of transportation well suited to community environments where trips are short in length and overly congested roads are difficult and costly to expand. And whereas bicycle commuting reduces energy consumption, pollution, and congestion. And whereas bicycle commuting makes people healthier and more productive through exercise. And whereas the National Nonprofit Bicycling Safety and Education Association, the League of American Bicyclists, has declared the month of May to be National Bike Month for each of the last 63 years, and has done so again in 2020. And whereas the City of Yelm has completed 2 commercial collector roadway projects that include bike lanes, a 3rd roadway project that includes bike lanes that connect the Yelm Middle School, and whereas the City of Yelm encourages and supports both walking and bike traffic through our development standards, and whereas intercity transit, with sponsors including the Capital Bicycling Club and many area businesses, is hosting the 33rd Annual Bicycle Commuter Challenge during the month of May 2020, probably going to be a little different than it was before. Now, therefore, I, J.W. Foster, Mayor of the City of Yelm, on behalf of the Yelm City Council, proclaim May 2020 as Bicycle Commuter Month in the City of Yelm, and strongly encourage all citizens to put forth their best effort to reduce single-occupant motor vehicle trips, to reduce air pollution, energy consumption, and improve the general health and well-being of the community. There we go. Very good. This is where we would normally go into public comment. And Grant, if you can look through the chat box or raised hands, do we have anybody in the virtual audience who wishes to address the council tonight?
No, except for Councilmember Wood, who has signed on as a participant. So he is here, he is listening, and I will unmute him so he can participate in the discussions.
Okay, very good. I'm glad that Councilmember Wood is able to join us. So with no members of the community here to address the council at this point, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the financial report for March, the voucher approval for March.
I move to approve.
And who was that? Councilmember Stillwell moves to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Kaminsky. For the benefit of those who are listening only, let's make sure that we state our name when we make a motion or a second. And for this, is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, we have all 7. Thank you, Council. New business, we're on to capital project status update, and we have Pat Hughes from Public Works is going to give us a presentation on this. Pat, are you ready to go?
Okay, good. Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Wow. Technology.
Hey, Pat, I'm going to put your PowerPoint up and actually give you control of the mouse so you can go through it at your leisure.
Okay, the PowerPoint will be for the WRF update. That'll be after my capital projects update. So for this little presentation, I guess it's I'll just run down the other projects if I can. So first of all, good evening, Council. What I wanted to do tonight was to give you an update of what's been going on with all of our capital projects. It's certainly been busy around here. Despite all the things that have been happening otherwise. So what I wanted to do is go down all of these projects, kind of group them together by type, and I'm going to hold off on the update on the WRF Phase 2 until after I go through this list. I would invite you to go ahead and ask any questions at any time as I'm talking, because it's probably more pertinent if you have a question about a certain project, just go ahead and ask me then. So I'd like to start out with what's going on in our street projects. First of all, we've completed the 507 First Street Corridor study here not long back. That That study is posted on the webpage, so you can take a look on that. I have already submitted our final grant reimbursement request on that project, so that project is pretty well closed out. But I just wanted to give you a kind of a final update. Okay, good. Next, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our biannual traffic counts. These are done every 2 years. We do this counting throughout the city at various intersections and at various segments of roadway. We need to do this for our Growth Management Act. We need to know this information for certain capital projects. We do this in the odd number years, so this was just completed in October 19th. We have received the counts, and I'm currently in the process of compiling those and putting them on a map so that you can kind of see where things lie. So that one is done for this year. Related to that, we do an evaluation of the pavement condition of all the streets in the city. That's done every 3 years, and it just happened that 2019 was the last time we did that one as well. We've received the results back on that one, and again, I'm compiling that on a map so you can see where all of our good streets and bad streets are. We hired a consultant by the name of StreetScan to do that survey for us. And that is wrapped up for as of this time, other than kind of compiling some results here locally. But that went real well. And again, we'll be using the results of that to help determine the next project I'm going to talk about, which is our annual overlay and pavement management preservation program. That program we take a look at actually annually to see what streets need pavement preservation, maintenance, overlays, and so forth. We need to have this for funding for potential grants. We need to do this for ADA compliance. We need to do this survey, to evaluate the condition of these roads each year to determine what we want to be doing as far as maintenance or overlays and so forth. So we're in the middle of that right now. We're assessing which streets we want to include for these different types of repairs in 2020. We're using mostly our in-house public works staff to do that. And so that'll probably be the next thing I'll be launching off here further this summer and this fall, is getting started on some repairs, maintenance, fixes, and so forth on our city streets. Also, on the street side of things, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Mosman Avenue Phase 2 project. I've been getting asked quite a bit about that. That project is actually still, believe it or not, moving along very well. We are in the right-of-way acquisition phase of Mosman Phase 2. That is now to the point where we're about to make an offer to the property owner, the golf course, for the property that we're going to need to run Mosman Phase 2 through that portion of that golf course. That right-of-way package is ready to go. It is currently being reviewed by WSDOT as per the rules for federal funding. Once that is reviewed by WSDOT, we will then present that offer to the owner for acquiring that right-of-way and the temporary construction easements that we will need for that project. Current schedule will be to complete this right-of-way phase by the end of this year, and we're looking at going to construction on Mosman 2 as early as about this time next year. Much of this, of course, is hinged on what funding we can come up with for construction phase work. I've already applied for one grant, a federal grant for this, and I'm planning on doing that again later this summer with the Transportation Improvement Board for the balance of the money. We just don't know and won't know how much we'll be able to get until sometime in July. So again, the Mosman 2 project is rolling along. We're just wrapping up the right-of-way phase, and we'll be launching into the construction phase next spring. The construction plans are about 90% complete on that project. So stay tuned, because you're going to be hearing more on that one. Are there any questions regarding any of these street projects before I move on? Okay.
Quick question, Pat.
Sure.
For our biannual traffic counts, since we're
Yes.
in like this weird COVID-19 phase where obviously traffic counts are going to vary differently this year, probably compared to past years, are we taking that into account as we do it this year?
No, they're already been done. They were done actually in October. So those were completed, and there are certain rules that we need to follow when we do traffic counts. For example, they can't be done on Mondays and Fridays. They aren't done during weeks with holidays nearby. So there's some very rigid rules of when you do and don't take traffic counts. So those were already done last fall.
I was talking about this ones we're going to do this year. Sorry, Pat.
No, we're not going to be doing one this year. Traffic counts are done biannually. So they were done in 19. We'll do them again in 2021.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well,
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, do we know about how many cars per day are going up and down Yelm Avenue? I think I heard at one point in time it was like 40,000 cars a day. And I was wondering if that's still a good number, or has that gone up or down?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers right at my fingertips, but yes, that is included as part of that. And because that is a state highway, that's monitored every year by WashDOT for traffic counts. If you want me to get those to you, I certainly can do that. I don't have them right at my fingertips right now, but yeah, we do collect those as well.
That would be great. That kind of information would be great. Just email it to us, something like that.
Sure, I'm making a note right now. So,
Thank you.
all right, I'd like to move on, if I may, here to some of our non-motorized projects. I'd like to start out with the sidewalk repair program that we just completed here earlier this spring. There was a number of areas around town that we did a lot of sidewalk repairs. Majority of them were along Yelm Avenue, and some of them were within the Prairie Heights, Autumn Hill, Hawks Landing, and Nisqually Estates neighborhoods. The project went very well. We're pretty much wrapped up on it. There are a few areas where we need to replace some trees and a little bit of landscaping, but for the most part, that project has been completed, at least for this year. So we plan on doing a similar program again next year. The Fort Stevens Elementary Pedestrian Project, which was completed last year, is winding up right now. I just am in the process of submitting our final grant reimbursement and closing out that project with WashDOT, because this is a federally funded project. It takes quite some time to get through the final closeout of a project like this. So that one is wrapping up. But there is another project I'd like to talk a little bit more about that's coming up, and that is our Mill Road sidewalk project. That, as you know, is along the west side of Mill Road between 104th and 107th Avenue. And that project has actually already been bids. Last Friday, we received bids on that project. They came in slightly under the engineer's estimate. The low bid on the project was Barcott Construction. We're currently assessing their bid and making sure they qualify and looking for any non-conformities and so forth. But we did receive 12 bids on the project. I was pretty pleased with the way they came in. I was hoping, of course, I always am, that they come in lower than that. But for the most part, they came in pretty favorable. So because school is out for the season, one of the conditions we had in the contract was that the contractor could not start construction until school was out on the 18th of June, I believe it is. So we're going to relax that restriction. I've talked with Yelm Schools, and they have no problem with us starting construction as soon as the contractor is ready to do that. And so we will be bringing to you a contract for the contractor for the construction of the Mill Road Sidewalk project. Just so you know, to refresh your memory on that, we do have a grant that we received from the Transportation Improvement Board for $300,000, which covers the majority of the project. There will be some additional funds coming from Yelm Schools to help cover the balance of the project, because the sidewalk portion in front of Mill Road Elementary was supposed to have been done at the time that the elementary school was built, 20 years ago, and they elected to defer those improvements until the city decided to undertake that project, which we are now. So we will be getting the balance of the funds from Yelm Schools. So look forward to some construction happening out there in the very near future. And again, I'll have a construction agreement to you. I believe it's on the 12th of May. That's what we're targeting at this point. So any questions on any non-motorized projects? I also know that we're working on the Yelm Prairie Line Trail. I don't have an update for you on that because the community development department is kind of heading up that. And I don't know if Grant, if you're on the line or able to speak to the Yelm Prairie Line Trail at all. I guess not. Okay, then if there's no other questions, I'm going to move on to a couple of our parks projects.
Terry has a question.
Yeah, Terry.
Came to me, and they were concerned about the median strip on Tahoma Boulevard, and that the sprinklers weren't working and the plants were dying, and what a waste of money it was. Is there anything in the plans to fix that this year? The medium strip in Tahoma Boulevard.
Yeah, no, I haven't been dealing with that at all. That's the first I've actually heard of that. It's not a capital project, it's a maintenance issue. So I'm going to have to defer that to the maintenance side of Public Works to see what's been being done with that. So I'm sorry, I just don't have an answer.
Yeah, no, please do look into it. It came up last year, so that's perfect.
Okay, I'm making note of that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to move on to a couple of parks projects. I would like to briefly mention the splash pad project, which, as you know, is complete. But I would like to mention that we're preparing that facility for reopening sometime, we hope, this year. But I wanted to mention it in that our permit comes from the county on that. And right now they've closed these facilities or have not given us our permit for this year to open that yet. So we're waiting to hear from the county as to if and when we can reopen the splash pad for this year. But we are, in Public Works at least, proceeding with all the preparations for getting that ready, because it does involve quite a bit of work. We have to reinstall fixtures, all the chemicals and everything that's involved with that. That's quite a undertaking for the water people as well. So stay tuned on that one as well. The playground is open. Our parks are open. And I've heard of a lot of positive comments on the playground equipment out there. We've had to do some maintenance on it as far as replacing some loose bolts and so forth. But it seems to be functioning very well. So if you do hear anything, please let me know so I can direct our maintenance folks to take care of that. But that's all I really had to mention on the splash pad and playground equipment. Wanted to talk a little bit about Longmire Park. We are doing some drainage. Yes, go ahead.
Pat, Councilmember DePino has a question.
Okay, I didn't have my pictures up there, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Pat, I was just curious regarding the water park. Are we waiting on the county due to COVID-19, or is it some other reason?
Yeah, no, it's COVID-19 related, and I have a letter that I received recently from the county health department, and unfortunately it's on my desk in Yelm. So when I plan to go over there on Thursday, I'll pick that up, and if you'd like, I can send you a copy of it. But it has specific directions on what to do, because it's not up to us; it's up to the county, because they're the ones that hold our permit.
No, it's not necessary to send that to me. I trust your judgment on that. I was also wondering, are there any precautions that we're considering when reopening this whenever we get back to somewhat normal?
Yeah, I'm sure there will be. We haven't got to the point specific things that we'll undertake. We'll obviously have to work that out with the new public works director and also with the maintenance staff as well. But I'm sure there will be, yes, precautions taken. I think that's the proper and prudent thing to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, if nothing else, I'd like to move on to Longmire Park. We are doing some improvements, or planning to do some improvements out at Longmire Park. Some of the athletic fields out there are in need of repair and leveling. There's some significant drainage issues, particularly along the north end of the soccer field. So we're looking at different alternatives for improving the drainage out there. Derek McCoy, who's with Community Development, is my project engineer on that, and we are currently working with Godet and Pantier. They're an architectural firm that kind of specializes in this area, and we've decided on an option that we think probably would work best for this. So they're going into design at this point, and we've been working with them and going back and forth and looking at these various designs with the goal of coming up with a final design by later this summer. We were originally going to undertake these improvements late in the summer, actually well into the fall, once the baseball season and all the activities were finished for the year. But since baseball has been pretty much canceled for the year, there's a distinct possibility we could actually move the schedule up on that project as well and get that started here later this summer. So again, stay tuned. Much of that's going to depend on when the final design is ready and what work we can do in-house and what work we feel that we're going to need to bid out to a subcontractor. So most of that funding is coming through the municipal building fund. We budgeted, $170,000 for that for this year. So my goal is to get that project completed here by the end of this fall. So been busy over here. Any questions on that one? If not, I'm going to move on to a couple of water system projects that we have going on. These two projects are related to one another. The first is the 2019. Yes.
Councilmember Carvetti has her hand up.
Okay, I don't see the hands here, so go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. So Pat, aside from all of the current parks that we already have, I know that there's been this sort of ongoing rolling funding for a pump park, and I'm wondering what's going on. No? JW shaking his head.
No, that got taken care of by the council during the last budget cycle when you moved money away from the pump track and into the sidewalk repair program. That's not even on the budget agenda at this point.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was still on there.
Oh, still alive as a dream, and someday when we have the funding for it, would like to go forward with that. But right now, that was council's decision to amend the budget during the last cycle to move that money into sidewalks, which we did.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, it is still in the capital improvement plan. That's the dream that he's talking about. But currently, there's not a budget for it. So we're moving on to others right now, but it is still there. Right. Okay, underwater, as I was starting to mention, we're working on one project right now, the 2019 Water Main Extensions Project. It's called 2019 because that's when the project began. What we're doing there is extending the existing water main along Walmart Boulevard, 103rd Avenue, Grove Road, and a couple of segments up on Canal Road. The purpose of this is, well, multiple reasons. The primary reason is that we want to extend our water main up to a portion of property where we're looking at putting a new storage reservoir on 103rd Avenue, and I'll talk about that next. But the other reason is along Canal Avenue, where we're connecting the existing water main together to provide a complete circulation of the system and improve some rather undersized pipes along 103rd and Grove Road as well. So we're working with Parametrics. They're doing our design for the water main extensions. The current plan there is to complete the design around October timeframe. We'd like to put this out for bids in October or November. I'm thinking right around Thanksgiving time, and then have construction begin right after the first of the year, after the holidays, which is a favorable time of the year to bid that project because of the time of year. So that's the plan on the water main extensions. Related to that is this reservoir I talked about briefly, the Southeast Reservoir. We've located a piece of property immediately to the north of Walmart. We need some additional water storage over in the east part of the city. We need it for fire capabilities, for fire flow, and to improve the flow in general on the east side of town, where is currently our weakest link, if you will. So we've identified this property that is currently being looked at for development as a multifamily residential development, apartments, but there's a portion of this property in the northeast corner that the developer cannot use because it is across from a high water area. So we've been talking to him about exchanging that piece of property for building the water main along Walmart Boulevard and 103rd Avenue. It seems to be a very favorable arrangement. The estimate for the appraisal on the property, which we have done, is almost exactly the same as the cost to construct the water main, which he would have been required to do as part of his development anyway, are very, very close in price. So we may have a deal worked out here, but we do not have a development agreement yet. I think that will be our next step. I would like to get this property issue completed here this year and possibly go to construction on that reservoir in late next year. I can give you some more details on the reservoir itself if you're interested, but for right now, I just wanted to let you know where we were as far as acquiring that property. Our next step on that one will be to complete a short plat in order, because we'll need to split that property. It's about 1.34 acres that we're looking at taking. So that's where the Southeast Reservoir stands currently. I'm sure you may have some questions on that. So before I move on to any sewer projects, do you have anything on water related? No?
I had a quick question, Pat.
Yeah, sure.
So in regards to the Southeast Reservoir, they seem pretty amicable about us doing that project and taking away the need for them to build the pipe themselves.
Yeah, they're very amicable, and the main reason for that is it's easier for the developer to sell that property Well, actually, let me rephrase that. The owner of the property, it's easier for him to sell that to a potential developer if he can state that the water main is already being taken care of. So that's a big plus for him.
Awesome.
And his, of course, the exchange for that is a piece of land that he has no use for. And so it's kind of a win-win-win situation if you think about it. So that's where we're at on that right now. So stay tuned on that one too, because there's a lot of work to be done on that. But I think it's going to work out really well.
And I'm correct in thinking, or just I'm processing in my head where this is. The bypass will actually run right next to this when the bypass is finished.
Yeah, but the bypass actually follows Walmart Boulevard, right along north and south along Walmart Boulevard. But this is the second parcel in from that, so
Okay.
it's second parcel east of where the bypass will be coming through. So there is a roundabout proposed for the intersection of 103rd and Walmart Boulevard, and a piece of that will slightly impact that property, but not very much. We're far enough away from it that I think we're going to be okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat.
I'd like to move a little bit on now to what's going on with some of our sewer projects. As you know, our phase 1 WRF upgrades were completed early last year. That project upgraded the SCADA computer control network system, and also replaced the reclaimed water pump station that was located in the blower building over at the WRF. That project is complete, but I bring that up because that was considered kind of a phase 1 emergency upgrades. Those are things that needed to be done immediately, but that is kind of a segue into phase 2, which we're currently working on. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth on where we are on the WRF phase 2 here when I get done with the other capital projects. We are looking at doing some collection system improvements this year. We budgeted $180,000 in 2020, and this has not been budgeted previously. We need to get some improvements done in the collection system. This would be to our step tanks, the pressure main, and there's some repair and replacement of the pumps and the step tanks that need to be done. So we're looking at doing some improvements in the collection system part of it later this year. I haven't developed that system yet, or that program yet, but that's coming as well, as if I don't have anything else to do. The Cochran Park project is probably the second largest project in the sewer category. We're planning to do some significant upgrades out at Cochran Park. We're currently working with Kennedy Jenks and Skillings in preparing the plans for some upgrades to Cochran Park. As you probably are aware, there's a lot of overgrown vegetation out there. We're looking at converting one of the ponds out there into an additional rapid infiltration basin. We are looking at enlarging the two of the 3 existing rapid infiltration basins out there. And there's going to be some changes to piping and so forth, in addition to cleaning out these existing ponds. We're just about to move into the design, the final design right now, and I'm working with Skillings at this point to try to get that off the ground, and we're negotiating their fee right now. But the goal here is to complete this design by the end of this year and go to construction during the winter when that park is obviously not used as much. It's a much lighter time of the year. It's going to disturb quite a bit of that park, and it's going to hopefully bring it back to what it looked like 22 years ago when that park was originally constructed. So there's going to be some pretty significant aesthetic changes out there at the park in addition to its function. So that is moving into the design stage right now. So I just wanted to let you know where that project stands. In the arena of storm projects, we're working with Flow Analytics right now to map out our storm system. That would include catch basins, pipes, outfalls, detention and retention basins. They have been hired by the city to map that out. They are doing a phenomenal job. They have some field work that they needed to get done here last week, but we postponed that because of the current COVID situation. But they are planning to come out and complete the field portion of that work. But the office portion there is coming along very well. And I don't have an actual completion date on that, but I wanted to remind you too that we did get a grant from the Department of Ecology for $82,000, and we're going to be well under budget on this project, so that's coming along great. Any questions at all on capital projects? I've got quite a few things going on, as you can tell. No? Okay, so Mayor, I guess that will conclude the capital projects update. I'd like to do this a little more often. I don't feel like this has been done often enough to keep you up to date, so I'll try to maybe plan on doing this a little more regularly. So Mayor, I think that completes that item, agenda item. So if you are ready, we could move on to the WRF Phase 2.
Yeah, please do. And council, you should have been all unmuted. You may self-mute yourselves. If you have questions, go ahead and just try to pop in there. We'll try to be, routine about that. Take it in turns. But you good with that, Pat?
Okay. Yep, that's fine. I just don't.
You won't be able to see them, Pat. So now they'll just be able to speak up.
Okay. Am I able to control the PowerPoint here?
Should be able to. Grant, you gave him that permission?
Yep.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, I'm not sure how I do it, but how do I do that? Do I just click on it?
Should be just back and forth on the keyboard.
Oh, okay. No, I don't get it, but maybe you could do it for me. But if you could just go to the next slide here, and I'll get started.
Copy.
Are you able to advance that for me?
Should be.
Yeah, I'm not able to control the PowerPoint.
It should be on the second slide. Oh wait, here we go. Excuse me.
There we go. All right, so what I want to do on the WRF project, as you know, this is our biggest project of all. This is perhaps the largest project ever undertaken by the city of Yelm. And so I think it's important that we be very transparent of what's been happening on this. And I wanted to just go over where we've been on this so far, what we're currently doing, and what our next steps are. So if I can, I'd just like to run down some of the things that we've accomplished on this project. First, we've completed the alternatives analysis. We looked at, as you might recall, we looked at different options for retrofitting the plant. We've made a selection to go with option 3A, which was a MBR retrofit of the existing plant. We've expanded the planning horizon out to 25 years, out to the year 2045 in designing this plant. So we want to make sure that when we're doing this, that we have enough capacity to handle flows for the next 25 years. That capacity is currently was designed for 1.29 million gallons per day. by the year 2030, but that blows up to 1.86 million gallons a day by the year 2045. So that's where we're going with the design currently. As you recall, we executed an agreement, a professional services agreement with Parametrics for the design of the phase 2 improvements. They are off and running. We've already had our kickoff meeting with them yesterday, even though it seems like 3 days ago. We had our design kickoff meeting, which lasted about 2.5 hours. Very, very productive meeting. So we're going to be meeting very regularly with Parametrics on the updates to the design. We've also involved the folks over at the plant themselves, the operators, and Bill Van Buskirk, our utilities director, to be involved in that as well. We've also taken a look at some various funding options, grants, loans, looking at our current sewer rates, just to kind of see what it is we may need to do for this. In doing so, we met with a tech team, as it's called, the various funding partners. So I think Grant, if you could advance to the next one, I think I have a list of some of the funding partners that we've met with. On April 22nd, we brought together a group of all kinds of funding partners. Can you bring that up for me? There we go. And this consisted of representatives from the Department of Health, from Ecology, from the Public Works Board, from the Department of Commerce, the CERB Board, USDA, Rural Community Assistance Corp, and we also talked with the folks with the Community Development Block Grant. So we brought together all these different potential funding partners to talk about what they could do for us in terms of grants, loans, and financing for this project. And it was a very productive meeting. We learned a lot, but we also learned that we've got a long way to go too. There's a lot of things that we're going to need to do in order to put together a total funding package for this. One thing also that we learned is that the focal point of all of this funding really runs through the Department of Ecology. So we're planning to meet with Ecology as a starting point in putting together this potential funding package. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes in our next steps. But if you could move on to the next one there, Grant, I'd like to maybe run down. Can you get, there we go. Some of the things that we learned also that are going to affect how we decide how to fund this project. We heard a lot from these folks about loans that are available and not as much from grants as that I would like to have heard. But there are limits on grants and loans, as you know. There's various interest rates. There's different terms to loans. Different tiers are available depending on a number of factors: the median household income, existing sewer rates, population of the city or town that you're in. So there's a lot of different variables that come into play with acquiring loans. There's different cycles in funding. Some of these organizations only have appropriations made every year, some every 2 years, and sometimes there may not be money available until another date. So we have to work with each one of them to figure out the timing on when money would be available to help fund this. There's a difference in application dates. Some of them have applications that are due in a certain time window. Some don't have particular application dates at all. So again, it's a coordination of timing on when do we apply for certain grants and loans. Our eligibility is different for all of these different resources. Some of them are dependent upon income thresholds. Again, another factor that affects the financing decision. Some of these grants are going to require, particularly federal grants, are going to require environmental studies be done, that certain system plans, our water system plan, to be updated. And one particular requires that we have to have 100% design done and reviewed before they can even consider financing the construction phase of the project. So that throws in a very difficult timing wrench, if you will, for me. So in view of that, I'm setting up this meeting with Ecology to talk about the process and the timing of design plan review. So I hope to learn more on that very shortly. And finally, there are some compatibility issues with some of the funding sources we found out during that meeting. For example, could a loan be used to finance the matching portion of a grant? Are there certain grants that are not eligible should we acquire another grant? So we have to look at the compatibility of two particular different funding sources, if they both can be used on the same project at the same time, or possibly if one can be used as satisfying the match portion of a grant. So, and last but not least, a couple of questions that we brought up were, how will financing decisions affect sewer rates? Obviously, if we're looking at going after some loans, we have to pay back those loans. And so those loans will have a direct effect on our existing sewer rates. Conversely, we need to look at how our existing sewer rates might be affecting our certain financing decisions, because as I indicated earlier, some of the existing or potential grants and loans depend upon our sewer rates. If they're too high, then we may qualify for what they call a hardship community. So again, another variable that's thrown in there, and how our existing rates might affect which funding sources we go after. So as you can see, we got a lot of work to do. We're very early in this stage, but we're diving into it. So we have our challenge ahead in the financing area. But if I could go ahead to the next one there, Grant, talk about a little bit about, yeah, there's a question there.
Yeah, it's Joe DePeno. I had a question regarding transfers of money from our general fund over towards this utility to pay for this project. Would it be possible at all to transfer money annually to pay for interest?
Well, that's certainly a question for the council and a question for finance. I would be happy with that, of course, but we're talking about $23 million here. So there's a significant amount of money that would need to be transferred, if you will. We're going to need some else. So
not all 23 million would be in loans, though. I'm assuming we'd probably get at least 5 million to 10 million in grant money.
I would hope we would. And again, I don't know the mix yet. I can't predict how much that would be. It's still premature to project how much from each source, but I am very hopeful that we can get at least that amount in grant money.
Okay, thank you.
Pat, I had a quick question. It's Cody.
Yeah.
Could there be some advantages to getting some of these grants or going after them now before there's a chance our population crests 10,000? Is there some grants that are applicable to us under 10,000 and some that are applicable to us over 10,000 population?
Sure. There's again, like I mentioned before, there's multiple variables here. I would be able to go after a grant as soon as one was available to apply, but it depends on when the application window is open. When would be a reasonable time frame to acquire the grant? In other words, if we don't go to construction on this for another 1.5 years or 2 years, is that a qualification of accepting the grant? I don't want to take money and then find out that we can't use it in the next year or whatever the terms of the agreement is. So sure, of course we can. That's what we're working on. But I think it's important that we put together a complete picture of what we want and how we want proportion between grants, loans, and actually, as I'm getting ready to talk about right now here, and what we're doing now is updating our sewer rate model and how different scenarios would affect our sewer rates if they needed to. We don't know that yet. We're not there yet. But the idea is that we would plug in different scenarios and grants, loans, and see how it would potentially affect the sewer rates. We're doing that now. We put in, I think we have 4 different potential funding scenarios. We'll talk about that with the Public Works Committee in the upcoming meeting and kind of show them what we're thinking and where we're going with it and how it might or might not affect our existing sewer rates. So I can't get into the details of that right now. First, I don't have it in front of me, but we've got a significant amount of work to do to bring that to where I think it needs to be before we make some final decisions on what we want to take. So,
Thank you.
Hey, Pat, this is Molly. I have a question.
Yeah.
I know that when you're looking for grants, I appreciate that it's probably a very huge process, including, scouring federal, state, even county level funding that's available. Do we have parametrics helping us with that? Or is it just a one-man show at this point? Are you the only person looking for grant money?
No, actually, Parametrics has been doing a phenomenal job in helping ferret out some of these funding sources. Brian Bunker, who is our project manager, is very knowledgeable in working with sewer rate models and bringing in outside funding sources because he's done this on multiple other projects. So no, it's not a one-man project. It's multiple, and Brian's been great at helping me come up with these ideas and strategies. So
he's actually helping to write the grant applications then?
We haven't got to the point of writing grant applications yet, but either one of us could do it. I've written tons of grant applications for other projects, and I would feel comfortable doing that. It's more of helping us put together the overall package. What do we want to have in terms of loans and grants, and then once we make that decision, it's just an execution process. I'll just go ahead and write the grant applications. Hopefully, by the time we get to the grant application process, the funding partner will already have a pretty good knowledge of what it is we're planning to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So again, under what we're doing right now, we're also in the technical end of things with Parametrics. We're assessing some of our existing electrical components out there at the site. We talked about that a great deal during the kickoff meeting yesterday morning. As I indicated, I'm setting up an initial meeting with ecology to talk about timing strategies, in particular review of the design plans and when we would have those design plans ready for their final review. I would like to involve them from day one so that we don't have to wait until we're 100% done with design before they even pick this project up and start looking at it. So I think it's very important that we involve them early on. So I'm doing that now. We're also working on the initial design of the MBR process. That's the membrane selection, what we're going to actually be using in the guts of the plant. There are many suppliers out there, many options, and we're going through that selection process right now. So there's a lot happening in not just the financing end of it, but the technical design as well. So Grant, if you could help me and go on to the next one for our next steps. So my next step is to schedule a follow-up meeting with ecology and then beginning to develop this initial funding strategy with based on this meeting that we had here last week with the funding partners. and how that might affect our sewer rates. So we'll continue to update the sewer rate model. And as I've indicated here on the slide, the Public Works Subcommittee will help develop and evaluate these various options based on this information that we receive, so that they can in turn recommend these funding scenarios back to the council for consideration. So it's a partnership, kind of, if you will, in the funding end of it between parametrics, Public Works, myself, our new director, and the Public Works subcommittee. So that's where we're at on financing, and we're off and running. So we'll keep you posted. This is going to be one of those projects you're going to hear a lot about in the next, frankly, the next couple of years. So with that, are there any final questions on the WRF upgrades? Yes, Joe.
Yeah, my question is on that last slide right there. And it's just kind of, I'm just curious. Did you put something over that? Was there something underneath the City of Yelm portion? It looks like it said "Welcome to Yelm" underneath, and you put over City of Yelm. Just curious.
Oh, the Welcome to City of Yelm Water Reclamation Facility. That's the sign that's out there in front of the water reclamation facility.
Yeah, it just looked like it's not important. It's never mind. It just looked like it was covered up.
It says "Welcome to." That's it. It's as if it's an enjoyable place to go to, but. Okay. Anything else on the phase 2 upgrades? Okay, please call me. This is my whole life, it seems like, and will continue to be. So if you've got any specific questions, please give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'll see what I can find for you. And don't hesitate to reach out anytime. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to give some time this evening to update you on this project and all the other capital projects. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Pat. Good presentation.
Thanks very much, Pat. I think it would be good for us to do these in little chunks as we go forward, and some of these in a little bit more depth in our study sessions, so that people are aware of them. It's going to get pretty technical going into the wastewater treatment facility. So the more we know from the process, the better. But great report, thank you. And you seem to be staying busy. That's nice. So we don't have any old business at this moment to take care of. So we'll move on to updates. We'll start with Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. I have some connection issues here. It's never good to have that in a virtual world. So Grant is helping me upgrade my my system. So let me know if you have any issues hearing me and I can just call in. That seems to work okay. So first of all, I just want to really compliment Pat and Steve in the way that they worked with the IAC. As you know, this is an unconventional approach, at least for the city. We've always looked primarily at rates and then hoped that grants and loans and things come in, and we've had some success getting some loans, but really flip the whole model on its head is what we've done this year of let's really drill into the IACC and the resources there, see what funding is available for grants and low interest loans, and then back into rates that obviously are necessary and they're a dedicated component as part of enterprise funds. But rather than leading with the rate conversation, starting with the grants and the loans that are available, and then using rates to fill in the gaps. So I also see us making a legislative request going forward. And as Pat can talk about later with the timing, we will find out if we can get some of these grants and loans around the time that the legislative session is off. So that'll be something just to file under your cap as we get to the legislative agenda development part of the season, and go forward from there. But Pat and Steve, just hats off to you. Great job in the way you've reached out to the IACC and looked at these resources. I want to give a couple of brief updates and then dive into what I said I would do, which is just give you an update on the financial aspect of things and city operations as we all navigate the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just some quick general updates, making sure everyone saw, the STP is canceled and we've suspended events through the summer. The grocery outlet is coming in, and it's a good addition to the community to backfill in the Sunbird space that's there. We wanted to make sure that everyone knows that despite the events being canceled through the summer in the public spaces, that the farmers market is okay per the governor's directives, and they will navigate that safely and continue to have that as a community event going forward. And the last two things before I dive in are the Yelm Chamber meeting. They've transitioned to a virtual style, just like the rest of the world. It's going to highlight the B&O tax improvements that we've made, which are available on our website. You've probably seen those, as most of you are business owners. But we're also going to highlight the FOG program, which we've talked about before. You set that as a policy, and Steve and Pat and Bill and the team have been working hard to set up an implementation education plan. So that will be coming to the next chamber public meeting. And the last thing that I wanted to make sure you knew of is the spring cleanup is still happening, and we've taken some precautions, and Steve and Pat and Toby have come up with a plan to make sure that it's being done safely for our employees, but most importantly, that this opportunity that comes every year is still available to our residents, including the pickup that occurs for our seniors and most vulnerable citizens. So priority is to keep the staff safe and keep this opportunity available for the community, and more details will be pushed out on social media. Those are the key highlights I wanted to update you on, and then and now dive into the council presentation here on the economic financial impacts of the pandemic. Grant, do I have control?
Yes, you do.
That's key. Definite maybe.
One too far. There you go.
There we go. Okay, and we're off. So I'm not going to read these to you. I'm still going to channel my inner EJ and know that people hate to be read PowerPoint presentations. But this is here just, again, to provide you an update as we keep you informed of what we know and what we're doing and what we're seeing as the numbers come in. As you all know, these are uncertain times, and we're taking a very measured, tiered approach of navigating this pandemic. And as we've talked about before, the priority number one is to make sure that our employees are safe and that essential services are sustained for the community, not only now during the pandemic, but we're taking a long-term approach because we don't know when we're going to come out of this, and we're going to get pretty soon into the biennial budget process. And so this approach of keeping employees safe and maintaining essential services is going to continue long after this pandemic is declared over. The good thing is everything that we're doing right now is working. We're seeing the funding from the feds come in. Mayor, have you got your stimulus check yet? Has that come in? Still waiting? Okay, well, pretty soon we'll get that. I know Councilmember Wood was talking about a loan that he got from the federal government, so it's neat to see that the different resources that are out there are starting to come into the community. We're also excited that permitting and construction activity continues with the school. That's going to be a big help to our economy. It's good to see those jobs coming in. The business licenses are up, as I reported to you in the last council update, and we're starting to see the governor relax restrictions with construction. We sent you the email and shared about the unified approach that the mayor and other mayors and the county commissioners requested that the governor relax the restrictions for construction and of residential, and the governor responded to the cities that were requesting that, and so that's real positive. Now we can go golfing here on May 5th, so that's good. Hopefully we'll continue getting more news, and we'll see more restrictions lifted going forward. Is that a question, Joe? Okay. I really liked what the governor said in the analogy or context of this is not going to be the flip of a switch. It's going to be the more of a turning of a dial, which really aligns with the measured approach that we're taking. This is the latest update that we have on the confirmed cases. The number is relatively low compared to some of the larger cities that we know and hear from, and so that's positive. But most importantly, the cases are starting to fall off, and so we see a lot of hope on the horizon. More restrictions being lifted and people getting back to work as safely as possible as soon as the governor and the healthcare authorities will allow that to happen. The biggest news from a financial perspective is that revenue is on track. As you know from the budget, more than 50% of our budget is sustained by our B&O and our sales tax and our property tax. We've seen the government push out different timelines that are due. We've done the same thing with B&O, saying, hey, small business owners, if we encourage you to pay, but if not, feel free to report in Q2 in July. And so we're going to see and have data trickle in later, but we're tracking it, and we're going to use that information that comes in to make informed decisions. But again, it's not going to happen quickly, and we're not going to react in a knee-jerk manner. We're going to take a measured approach. One of the things that you all know from the budget is, the budget flows in different cycles. Property tax, everyone knows, comes in twice a year, comes in early, and it comes in late in the year. B&O and sales tax is steady. And then our expenses, we spend a lot of our budget in Q1, which as you can see here, we've already spent 37% of the budget, and those details are listed there below for your convenience. Here's the trend lines that we see about historical revenue collections, just for context. And as far as for sales tax, just going through, giving you an update. Again, the information and the data that we're seeing is everything is coming in as projected. I can't reiterate enough that the data and the information that we have will be delayed, again, because of the government extensions that we and other departments and state entities and county entities are making. But as of right now, things are coming in on track. We are not anticipating that will be the trend, but what the new trend will be is unknown or uncertain at this point. So we have to plan for several variables and have several contingencies. With regard to B&O tax, as I mentioned earlier, we're encouraging businesses to file, but we're giving a delay for those that need it. And all they have to do is just simply request that. No form, no process or anything that people have to go through. Just ask, and we're glad to accommodate and support our local businesses. We want to make sure that we ease the burden that they're going through right now. At the same time, want to make sure that everyone's as compliant as they can be, while giving them a little grace. As I talked about, we are taking a measured approach. Yes.
Question from Councilmember Carmody.
Yes, ma'am.
A really, really quick question about the B&O taxes. I know that they are now being done or filed online, and we can pay online. But I did not get any kind of an email reminding me to do this. Do you guys have email addresses for business owners so you can send out an email reminder to say, hey, don't forget to file, instead of a paper copy? And that would save us money on paper copies as well.
Yes, everyone should have gotten an email. I will loop back with our staff on that, just to double check and make sure that you're on the list. That's a good pilot. I know we just approved Councilmember Blair. I think we did, right? Councilmember Blair, did you finally come in and pay that bill so you can start operating your business legally in the city of Yelm? Are you good, business owner? If Tracy, did you get an email? Tad, did you get an email? Terry, did you get an email? You didn't. The cool part about having you all as business owners is the aspect that we can test this, just like Councilmember Carmody said. So So Joe, Tad, Terry, Tracy, James, no emails?
I'm not sure if I did. I haven't heard anything from my office manager.
Okay. Well, thank you, Councilmember Carmody. We'll dig into that and I'll follow up. But yes, we're doing more by email. We've created this web form, which actually helps do some of the calculations for folks. So not only have we streamlined it in conjunction with the Department of Licensing and Department of Revenue and the state permitting processes, making it more web-based and doing some of the calculations easier for folks is several of the steps that we're doing to try to make that burden a little lighter. But it only works if you actually get the information. So we'll follow up. Back to what I was talking about of a measured approach. We're in what I would call a tier one of our response of a three-tiered approach. And that's doing the actions that you've already heard about. The thing we're most excited for is this long-term revenue forecast model. GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, has transitioned. Usually you have revenue forecasting certainty at around 4 years, and they used to recommend you do a 5-year forecast. Just to take that longer look, they've pivoted their recommendations and are now suggesting you take a 10-year horizon. So with this new tool, not only will we have a long-term revenue forecast, but it will have the functionality to go for 10 years, which will be really positive. And there's lots of good tools and tricks and information out there that we're looking at incorporating and sharing with you all as part of these updates, which Councilmember Carmody can talk about. We were on the same MRSC web forum this morning, and I'll let you highlight that later, Molly. But these are the things that we're doing right now. And as we know more, we will take more action. I think the key thing to remember is as we go through the tier one response and get to tier two, which is actually taking some more formal actions and making some cuts formally through the budgeting process if that becomes necessary, we're queuing that up. But we also have reserves, as I shared with you earlier, that would get us through the rest of the year. And really, we would take a hard look at the budget as part of the biennial budget development process to make sure that we're maintaining that long-term continuity of keeping the staff safe, but at the same time, maintaining essential operations. The other thing I want to point out on this slide is something that we recommended and council adopted, which is allowing for the utility charges to be paid back over the course of a year. We still have had 0 requests to date. We had one customer that actually wrote on their bill that said, I may be having trouble paying this back. And, you know, we let her know, hey, if you want to get on a contract and a payment plan, we're good to go. We have not heard back from her yet. There was also another customer that I spoke with directly who said they may be coming up on some difficult times. They don't know. And again, we shared it, but we've had essentially 2 people saying that they're definite maybes, but no one actually take us up on the payment plan, which is good news. Again, we don't think that will sustain, and we do think people will be not paying their bills, which will result in a loss of revenue, of which we'll reach out to them with the contracting option. And we're sure people will jump on it eventually as the new normal settles in and the financial hardships hit home. But who knows? We may not. The stimulus checks may come into play and may serve as a great bridge as this goes forward. There's, as I said, a lot of unknowns. This is same slide you saw last time, just for context of the total budgeted revenue for all utility funds and the breakdown of each. One of the things that council asked, several of you asked in different forms, and we said, hey, if you've got a policy or a proposal that you want to make, go through our normal process, especially now that we're going to have the council committees teed up again. But one of the things, I can't remember all the numbers, but Councilmember Carmody, you said, hey, could you just give us some information on a 50, 75, and 100%? And so we did that. And here's the numbers. If you were to take a swipe at the rates and reduce them, this is what those numbers would look like. And so you can look at the total number there in the context of what I just shared. the total revenue that comes in. So this is here for you. I'll email out the PowerPoint slide if you guys want to continue this conversation, but it would be appropriate to either weigh this as part of the other deliberations that you'll be going through that Pat just mentioned with the IAC looking at rates, with the Public Works Committee, because as Pat advised, everything is connected to everything, and you can't just pull on one string and not have it impact the other. And as Councilmember Stillwell said last time, if we make a reduction, I know you wanted the information, which is good. It's always important to ask these questions. I just want to provide the context that if you do make a reduction, that would be in addition to any declines in revenue that we're anticipating, which we haven't seen yet, but we think we will. And then obviously, depending on which utility that you lower the rates of, depending on what the goals and the operational costs are, which are in the budget you adopted, we'd either have to have service or staffing impacts or find a way to make that up with future rate adjustments. So, Councilmember DePino.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So understanding that that's for 3 months, the 785,000 for 50%. Have you considered that we could pay this off in the next budget, such as backfill it? So let's say it's a 785 and new revenue and budget cuts too. If we wanted to, could we just budget for that $785,000 rather than a rate increase?
I'm not understanding your question.
Instead of paying for rate increases, like you said, that if we spend $785,000, that's a budget shortfall of $785,000. But if we had budget in the next budget or upcoming that we're going to be doing this year, could we not? And I'm not saying I'd advocate for it, but I'm just saying, could we not budget for $785,000 to backfill this if we do a temporary utility rate decrease?
Yeah, I think the short overarching answer to your question is, as council, you can do whatever you want. And obviously if you want to lower rates now for a certain period of time and then pay that back later using the general fund or whatever funds are legally appropriate, sure, you could do that. I mean, the only thing to keep in mind is, if you decrease the revenue now, that would result in service and staffing impacts now, that when those monies are paid back, you would then have to, you wouldn't, it's not just about the money, it's about the service and the staffing that the money provides for now. So we'd have to look at everything in context, but the short answer is yes.
Excuse me. All right, thank you.
Pivot to the next slide. Let's see. There we go. Sorry, I'm having performance issues. So the other thing I wanted to reference for you all is the same thing as last time. We have the cost of the water reclamation facility, which is in the budget, and these are again all of the expenses. This is the staffing and the services that they provide. And so if you do look at making a rate adjustment to one or all of the utilities, all that information is in the budget. I just have the same snapshot from the last conversation, focused just on the water reclamation facility. But if you want to reduce or consider temporarily reducing any of those other enterprise funds and those rates, you can take a look at what those service and staffing impacts would be in the budget. I think it was Councilmember Blair that asked for a summary of what those expenses are, and so we have this and everything else that's in the budget. And we'll dive deep into this, Councilmember Blair, as part of the budget development process going forward. And if you want to meet with us now to go over what those expenses are for staffing, since you raised that question, again, glad to do it anytime.
Councilmember Wood is on the phone. Did you have a question, Tracy?
No, I did not.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Go ahead. Councilmember Blair's got a comment.
Regarding the number I was asking about, as far as the amount that actually is for like actual operations and what's above that, which is basically the amount that's building up the excess that we use, for instance, for the study. I'm not looking for that in a personal conversation between me and you. I wanted that put out in a meeting so everyone knows and it's open for everyone to know.
And what is that again?
I'm curious with for instance the sewer rates, the amount of money coming in, how much of that is just covering just day-to-day operations, and how much of that is building up in the fund that we're then using towards the capital projects. So the number I'm looking for is what's the dollar amount that covers actual operations, so we know what the difference is between that and what's actually coming in.
Got it. I'm just making a note here. Hang on a second. The delta between operations and essentially is another way to say that the delta between what's covering operations and what's covering either capital. Do you want to know the capital repairs and maintenance of things, or money set aside for future capital investments?
The difference between total income for the utility and what's required for just basic, like, normal day-to-day operations. So obviously there's an additional amount, which is that's the funds that we're holding either for future capital projects or improvements, and if you like, there's obviously an extra amount that builds up in that fund. I'm just trying to figure out what that amount is.
Got it. Okay, I'll take a swipe at it, and I will probably call you first just to make sure that it's what you're looking for, and then we can use that as in an update to the council next time we do this, as we continue this conversation going forward. Sound good?
That works. Thank you.
Hey, James, all of that information is in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the budget, that's all in there.
I understand it's in the budget and I could find that, but the average person in our city isn't reading through the budget to try and find that. So I just want that made open and available for everyone here to hear.
For those watching on TV land, and I can put this PowerPoint out. It literally is page 73 of the budget, and we have the hyperlink if you want to share that with folks too. But I'll go through and give that specific breakdown that you're looking for. And like I said, I'll call you and we'll put that out just to make sure it's exactly what you're thinking would be helpful for constituents if they can't do what you suggested, which is the budget.
Councilmember Stillwell, you have a question?
No, more of a statement. I think that we have to be mindful of looking at this information and getting it to the people that we're trying to give it to in a good manner that's understandable. So as a council member, I need to look at the budget, understand it, and get it out in a clear thing. So because staff is obviously, with everybody working remotely, I feel guilty myself asking for extra things when it's already provided.
Councilmember Kaminsky.
Sorry, I can't see myself, so I don't know if my hand is up. Just for my own clarity, I'm not sure if I missed this. Are we actually talking about discussing whether we're going to lower water rates? Is that the discussion on the table?
Definite maybe. As I answered Councilmember DePinto, right? You're the council. You can do whatever you want. You're the ones that set the policy. And some council members have thrown out ideas and basically said, hey, what if we lower rates? And there were a whole bunch of different scenarios that your counterparts have suggested. There hasn't been a formal proposal made. And so at the last meeting, I think it was Councilmember Molly Carmody that said, hey, could you just give us a swag for 50, 75, and 100 just to just to look at it, just to have the information. So
Okay.
that's what we're doing. But still, same process. If you guys have a proposal that you want to put forward, there's the link to the policy form. You know, draft it up, write it up, look at what the implications are, and then you all can consider that.
Okay, should this be an issue? Because it's obviously not an issue at all right now. Have the next bills gone out, JW? The billing cycle starts the end of the month, right?
Yeah, they'll be getting their bills real soon, and they'll also be getting a notice that we drafted up to each of our utility customers that explains what the process is, reassures them that they won't be shut off, tells them about the contract availability should they get into trouble with their water, their utility bill. So they'll see those very shortly. Of course, due date is the 15th, and we'll see what happens as people get those.
So with things starting to open up, I'm really hoping this is not an issue at all that we need to address.
But we're ready to see what it, we have a couple of different things in the pipeline to help us handle that. Certainly, the hope is that people pay all their bills as they're able to do so, and with the stimulus checks and the unemployment funds and other funds that are available through a variety of sources, we hope people can do that.
Okay, thank you.
We won't know until we see.
Right, thank you.
Yep. Michael, go ahead.
Copy. Dealing with my performance issues again here. Hang on. There we go. Perfect. Just a reminder, about as we look at the utility rates and the WRF, just to reinforce what Pat was saying earlier. Again, they did a yeoman's work to take a really fresh perspective of, let's look at all the grants and the funds and the loans that are out there. Let's see what resources are available. You've heard about the next steps that Pat's going to take, and the model, and how, you don't look at the sewer model in a silo. It connects to all the other rates and look at it comprehensively. And then we'll have the Council Public Works Committee wrestle with all this information and evaluate options. And you guys will continue this conversation going forward as a group. So whether you want to act on it or consider it prematurely, Pat and his work has already set this course, as you remember from when Chad departed and I gave the presentation last year that said, hey, here's the big rocks that we need to put in place. We need to land the plan on what the design is, which you've done. We then need to figure out how we're going to pay for it, which we're in the middle of doing right now. And we have to take that long-term look at it and obviously consider what the impacts are to our community and to the budget. So they go hand in hand. That concludes the update for you all, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. I hate being long-winded, and I know I'm good at it, but I did want to just touch on the financial aspects of things for you and just keep you apprised of what we're seeing with the numbers, what's happening, and we'll continue to keep you informed as we take a measured, tiered approach to planning how we navigate this pandemic. And I think you'll hear more from Councilmember Carmody about some resources that are available from a webinar that she and I were on today that'll be very helpful and informative. So any questions, Council?
Okay.
Okay.
Cody, go ahead, Cody.
Michael, can you mention really quickly the hiring freeze and kind of what that means? Because I noticed there was a position open recently for one of the city positions, and what that means for us in terms of what a hiring freeze is exactly.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. Let me see, where's my slide? Grant, do we have it? Have you taken my controls away? Anyway, long story short, it was something that when we came out of the gate with this, we said we're going to do a hiring freeze except for the public works director. And then at that point, then Grace resigned and took another job. And we're like, okay, well, we need to make an exception for the police officer. We need to make an exception for the public works director. We need to make an exception for the utility person. And so bottom line is we're taking a measured approach when these vacancies occur, because we're not just it doesn't make sense to just do an all-out hiring freeze. but we are looking at positions as they come available. I mean, we're going to have retirements of folks. You never know when you're going to have a resignation. With opportunities that exist from these vacancies, there may be some movement internally of people. And so we're going to take a comprehensive approach to it. But we've walked away from just saying we're doing a hiring freeze because, frankly, in the last 3 scenarios, it did not make sense because they were essential personnel. So that's what I've updated the slide to reflect, and you don't see that in there anymore. But thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Council?
Okay, well, then we'll go on to Council Member Blair's update.
Obviously, no meetings happening, but there's a couple things that I'd like us to talk about at next week's study session regarding looking at trying to find ways of funding for the water reclamation. I wanted to possibly talk about an option of kind of similar how Puget Sound Energy with their bills, they have an option where you could basically donate a certain amount that they use for families in need or that have trouble paying their bills. If we could somehow maybe come up with some kind of fund that allows people to basically chip in a little extra if they're able to, and maybe we can start building up some funds to go towards this project, and maybe hopefully we can gain enough through that maybe we can mitigate rate increases later. Because from what I'm seeing, what we have until March 21 when they're thinking of starting construction. So I mean, that's a good 9 months at least that hope maybe we could see how much we can come up with between now and then to mitigate that stuff. And then other than that, I know everyone saw what I sent out earlier this week. And then I pulled that off the table for obvious reasons that I explained. I still feel the same way. I think this shutdown, it's not feasible to go on much longer, and people are going to be starting to hurt a lot more. And I'd like to talk more about what we can do in regards to trying to get our people back to work.
Okay, Councilmember Carmody. You're muted. Grant, would you unmute them all, please?
Sorry about that. I was being polite.
Thank you.
Okay, so I obviously all of my meetings have been canceled too. I have been attending some AWC and some MRSC meetings, webinars to kind of update myself on some of this knowledge. So I attended on the 22nd, I attended, the Managing a Public Utility during the COVID-19 pandemic. And basically they gave a lot of information that we're already doing, but they did offer a couple of insights as far as the gifting of public funds. They said that and it has been reviewed by the Attorney General and approved, that if somebody were to come forward, make an agreement for repayment, of their utility bill in the future, and then they still can't manage the repayment options, we can gift them a 50% sort of deduction on their bill, and that will not violate the public funds directive. So that's already been reviewed by the state. State says, yeah, that's okay. So that's always an option if we need to go that way in the future. Today, I attended How Your Agency Can Survive and Recover Fiscally from the COVID-19 Outbreak. And basically it said a lot of things that we've already done, we're already doing. Our team is great, we're on top of a lot of this stuff. But what they did do is offer some ways that staff can communicate our levels of fiscal abilities or fiscal health to City Council. I know that we are sort of inundated with a lot of information, and like James and Ted have said today, sometimes it's really hard to sift through all of the information that we have. So this webinar actually offered a couple of different sort of screenshots or charts that staff, finance staff could give to city council. And one of them was really basic, you know, how are we on a scale of, you know, green to red on, you know, on the health of our system? Are we green? Are we go? Is everything good? Or are we red, like city council needs to take immediate action? Or are we somewhere orange in the middle? And then there's some other super duper easy charts that they presented that I would love for our finance staff to kind of look over. And I've emailed those to Michael and Heidi and said, hey, can you guys maybe try and give these to us a little more often? But they were really helpful. So we're doing pretty much everything that these guys have that the guys suggested. So we're on a good track. I'm really hopeful, and you know, hopefully everybody's still staying safe, and miss you guys. That's all I have.
I'm going to assume you said Councilmember Colt, even though you're muted, JW. Okay. So actually all my meetings were on Zoom this month, so I was able to attend all of them. I went to the Transportation Policy Board meeting. There was a lot of people just interacting with Zoom and just the meeting and how they'll be looking for the future. I also accidentally attended the Thurston Regional Planning Council meeting. I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to be in there, but I joined, and so I got to listen to Mayor kind of direct a meeting, which is kind of cool. I also attended both of the MRSC meetings that Molly attended. They were amazing. Sorry, Councilman Carmody attended. They were both amazing, and she said all the information in there. There was one thing where there's programs in place. From my perspective, it seemed like it was if you're low income, these programs can be done to you to gift you funds if you need to, or we can have a grant program that you can apply for. That's in place for us to not violate the gifting of funds. So that was pretty interesting and cool. Besides that, like I said, just keep getting, if you have questions or anything about information, the best places to get it are from the sources, the sites we have available to us. Don't get it from your cousin living up in the mountains or whatever, get it from accurate sources. That way we can spread most positive and factual information we can. That's all.
Thanks, buddy. Councilmember Stillwell.
Yes, I was super excited last Friday. I had a steady meeting, which I forgot about promptly, and I had logged in the last 5 minutes. I was to work early, knew something was going on, and I totally spaced it off. So I got to hear the closing comments, and sounded really interesting. I really missed a lot of good material, but that's it. I'll get used to this Zoom meetings and stuff. It's just a different mentality for me. It's kind of difficult, but that's all I got.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Councilmember, where am I? Still, Councilmember Wood on the phone.
I have just been working my butt off delivering people food and trying to keep everybody fed. I have a meeting that's starting tomorrow with the, I got TCOM tomorrow. We have a go-to-meeting type of setup, and I'll let you know how that goes. But other than that, I'm not even sure what day of the week it is most of the time, because they all seem to resemble the same day for the last several weeks. And so I feel your pain on this, Council Member Blair. But just a reminder, we all took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Washington. But I do understand where you're coming from and understand your frustration, because I'm in the same boat. I think we've kicked this dead horse down the alley quite a ways further than necessary, and it is time for the state to start considering, looking at the numbers, doing some actual math. And that's my report.
Hey, and I appreciate what you're doing. If you're the one making the biscuits and gravy down there at Mr. Doug's, high quality, got to tell you. Nice job.
Well, you know better than that.
No, but I do, honestly, I've been to a number of the businesses in town during the shutdown. And when I went in to pick up my breakfast at Mr. Doug's the other day, you guys are doing it exactly right. And if people wanted to have a video of how to do that safely. When your team comes out with a mask and gloves and they have everything bagged and people actually have pre-washed pens that they can use to sign their receipt and everything's getting wiped down as the customer leaves, good on you and the other businesses in town who are following that same protocol. Appreciate it. Councilmember DePino.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a Thurston EDC meeting last week. We went over COVID-19 resources for the business community, and a lot of it's really good information, including a hotline, business hotline that the City of Olympia funded. And if you wanted to look up any of that information or a lot of the resources they put together on their website, there's some EDC. If you just Google it, it'll have a lot of good information for you if you're a business. I was hoping the Public Safety Committee, now that you all are starting to meet by Zoom, hopefully upcoming. I'm not sure when it is. I'm guessing the next couple of weeks here, but I really am looking forward to that the secure mailbox program and seeing what the results of that, what your discussions are, and hopefully we can bring it to the council for a full vote after everything's worked out. Lastly, I've been working with the Yelm schools on a proclamation honoring both athletic teams and clubs that have represented Yelm at state level or higher, and hoping to have this ready for the council to approve or vote on the second meeting in May, second council meeting in May. That's all I have.
Great. Hey, I want to tag on to that. The Thurston EDC is doing a great job. The website is thurstonstrong.org, thurstonstrong.org. We also have a link to all of those resources on the City of Yelm's website. So people have, pretty good opportunity to find the links to get to them and the programs that they can apply for the grants and unemployment with. So thanks for bringing that up. And Councilmember Kaminsky, you're muted. Unmute Terry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now
I knew you didn't want to listen to me. I just knew it. Okay, somehow I missed my Nisqually River Council, and it sounds like the Thurston Thrives head leader, Crosby Carter, has resigned. So I haven't heard anything about that. So no meetings for me. And I would just like to say, I concur with James on this. If you've listened to anything but CNN, there are scientists and doctors around the world that are refiguring their numbers. And even from the slide we just saw, if there's 100 cases and 95 recoveries, that means 5 people maybe had the virus, maybe. And so I just wish that we had more autonomy. I'm all for following laws and protocol, but I wish we had more autonomy as a community, because I think our community would be totally safe to open up right now. So I wish we could. That's all I have to say.
No, you have a lot more to say than that.
I know, but not here.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Hey, on that note, let me just, it's my turn here, reiterate that we've been in a lot of meetings and a lot of communication with the governor's office, with council, with our representatives to the legislature, with our Congressman Heck. We have been listening, they have been listening back. And as Michael pointed out in his updates, it's because of that concerted voice that we have all given to the governor's office and the information that they're getting from their medical experts. They have listened to us, and they are opening up the construction trade and those businesses that support the construction trade. And they are cautiously opening the community back up. And as the numbers demonstrate success on that, they're going to continue to do that. And we're looking forward to that as much as anybody else. So we appreciate that. As was mentioned earlier too, there's opportunities for people to get relief. Again, you can go to the EDC's website and you can find ways to apply for the loans for businesses and for unemployment benefits. We also have several organizations in the area that are providing immediate relief to local families. The Yelm Community Relief Fund, for example, that we stood up a few weeks ago, has had pretty good donations locally, and I'm very happy to report that the Community Foundation of South Puget Sound has donated $10,000 to that fund, which is fantastic. So, and we have already started helping local families. The average distribution to the local families is about $350, which I know is just a dent in their financial need. But again, it's locals helping locals, and we're really glad to be a part of that. We did have, I like to see the new virtual way of doing things is working. Our management team meetings are working very well. Chamber of Commerce is working well. TRPC, as Cody mentioned, is working well. Cody, you're always welcome to sit in on a TRPC meeting. You've got nothing else to do. You're welcome to join there. And even the FFA, they put on a plant sale that everybody looks forward to every year, and they had to go to a virtual method, and they did a fantastic job. They had some 350 people log in and buy plants and pick them up, and they did have one little glitch in their system. Overall, it worked great. So people are starting to find a new way to do things. So before we move on to our executive session rather, I did want to do a shout out to our departing interim public works director, Steve Clark. We said goodbye to him this morning at the management team meeting. He has done a phenomenal job over the last 6 months. We appreciate all of the experience and knowledge he's brought to the position. And, you know, we wish him well in his retirement. His last day will be on the 30th. And he has graciously offered to help the new Public Works Director with questions that they might have as they transition into this new position, which we will be talking about again in the executive session. And I did want to mention happy birthday to Councilmember Cole.
Thank you.
But you don't get to say move to adjourn yet, because we still have one more thing to do. I want to make sure I check my notes here.
So, Mayor?
Yeah.
The only public we have left is Eric Rosane, and he just pinged me and said he's not going to stick around till after the executive session. So if you like, we can stay in this meeting and just have Brianna not stream to YouTube to avoid the complexity of getting into another meeting, if that's your pleasure.
Yeah.
Give me half a second. I love it when you surprise me like this. Looking at the list of attendees, demonstrate to me that you can block out all of the other attendees, including staff, except for Michael Graham. And then I would entertain going that route. Council, nod your heads if you're okay with that kind of idea. If we can exclude all the public and non-council members, we could do our executive session here without having to go through the manipulations of going to a new meeting. Okay.
I wouldn't be able to actually block Brianna, but she would stop the YouTube stream.
All right. So let me know. At this point, I'm going to announce that we are going into an executive session for the purposes of reviewing the qualifications of an applicant for public employment. We expect the executive session to last no more than 20 minutes, at which point we will open back up, and then only to adjourn the meeting at that point. So as soon as Grant, you tell me that you and Brianna are off, and then I'll text you when we need you to come back on. How's that?
So Mayor, I can't